We are living in an interesting time. So much of what is true in our businesses, even in just the regular day-to-day functioning and operating of those businesses, a lot of what is true below the surface rises up during the time of a crisis, and we begin to see it even more clear. What are some of the things that are working well within our organizations and some of the things that are not? And leadership is probably one of those things that really begins to demonstrate itself even more so during times of crisis. It's there regardless of the time of the season that we're in, but it's really truly there during those times of crisis. My name is Rob Dale. I'm one of the co-leaders here at Rhapsody Strategies, and I'm joined with Trevor Munven and Eric Deschamps, who are going to, we just wanted to have a little bit of a talk and chat around some of the challenges that are facing individuals within their roles in an organization that are trying to kind of navigate through all of that during this season. We are seeing, of course, exactly that during a time like this, there are changing roles. There are the need for new roles to be created. There are roles that are currently there that are suddenly no longer needed within organizations as they begin to shift where their priorities are. And that can be a really a challenging time for people. Harvard Business Journal just today put out an article all around the human element of an organization and the need to speak to that human element as a leader, the need to be able to communicate effectively into that when people are in uncertain times and then they have uncertainty around their roles. We're seeing really two major dynamics, and we want to talk about those for a few moments. Eric, maybe you could speak to the first one, which is the dynamic of leaders who are losing their roles. They're all of a sudden discovering that things are they're no longer necessary, or the role is no longer necessary. And what are some of the things that you've been hearing around that?
Well, as you mentioned, pressure has a way of revealing what's already there. When the squeeze is on, what's inside comes out. And what we're seeing right now, obviously, with this pandemic, is there's a lot of movement right now. There's a lot of folks at organizations that have had to lay people off just for financial reasons to be able to survive what's going on. Essential roles, often it's just those roles are the ones that are being focused on and kept. And there's a lot of movement. But this question of people not being in the right role or losing their role or finding the right thing to do, this is an age-old question that right now is coming to the forefront. And now many who had the luxury perhaps in the past to let this question nag them in the background has now been pushed to the foreground and forced on them that they need to redefine themselves, find their next sort of chapter of their lives. And there's really two dynamics here. You think of the people impacted by all of this. They're the employers that are having to let important employees go for the reasons that we've already talked about, and that's never an easy thing. You're talking about people that have contributed, that have been good team players. I mean, the more a team player, an employee has contributed to the organization, the harder it is to have to make a decision like this to let them go. And many employers have done what they can to keep them. But there's this whole notion of how do you help an employee transition out? How do you do that with honor? How do you do it with respect? And how do you help that key employee that you're having to let go? How do you help them prepare for the next chapter of their lives? And then there's a whole notion of helping the people that are being let go, right? These are the folks that are facing a difficult time where something that was perhaps a sure thing is now gone, and it feels like the proverbial carpet's been pulled out from under them. And now all of a sudden they're having to, they're back in the applying for work at a time when, work is at a minimum and opportunities are slim. This all happened very, very quickly. It's all happened very, very fast. But how does a person in that scenario ask themselves the right questions and work through all of the emotion and work through all of the hardship to really not just land their next gig, which anybody might need to do in order to pay the bills, but life is too short to just land a gig that you're going to be unhappy in for the rest of your life. This is an opportunity for those folks to really set some parameters, determine what's important to them, determine what makes them tick, and begin perhaps that search for the next chapter of their lives that'll add tremendous meaning to them and to those that they touch.
Yeah, I love how you use the word opportunity there. that you take what can be in many ways a life-changing crisis, a life-changing situation, to be able to see it from the lens of an opportunity to reinvent, an opportunity to really explore. It's an incredibly emotional time for any leader and in any organization. And so to be able to see it from that sense is so important. The other side of it, the second kind of lens to all of this is those leaders, the individuals within an organization that are really having the opportunity to take a pause and to rethink their priorities, to rethink what is truly important to them, what matters. Trevor, why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Crises like these, moments like these sometimes called defining moments, often called refining moments, depending on how you live them out and play them out, are incredibly important. And this is a time where, as Eric has said, so many people are losing their roles right now. Not all of them are going to get them back. We're seeing, staggering numbers in the short term. And I think there's a bit of a confidence that things are going to get better. The question is how quick and how fast. But in these moments, it's a bit of a shock to the system. All the things that we thought we knew about what was ahead of us are suddenly thrown into question. Yeah. And, in the midst of that, we also have many leaders who are at home, and they're not in the office. They're away from the regular patterns, the regular noise, the regular chatter. It's been disrupted. And what happens sometimes when we feel that kind of disruption is it gives us space to think, reconsider, find a way to connect with maybe some of the voices that have been in the background in our mind. And in those moments, we can start to attend to some of the voices about what's really important in our lives, about what do we really prioritize, about what do we wish we had done. And, a lot of these can get drowned out through the regular day-to-day. We stay so busy, we stay so occupied, but also when we get given a little bit of space, those voices get a little bit louder.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing is a situation where many leaders are they've got time and space to look and say, what do I really want? Right. What's really important to me? What do I need to live a life and to have a career that are full of alignment and full of meaning? And to look at where they are right now and go, is this it?
Yeah.
Right. Is this what it's going to be? And so I think what we're seeing is the pressure. And Eric, I love it. When you have pressure, some stuff is going to come out. It starts, we also talk about, we described it as the great reveal. We're starting to see all kinds of things that were just behind the veneer, and the veneer is getting pulled away of everything. And so we're seeing what's truly there. And so we're seeing people's values. We're seeing their leadership. We're seeing who's strong, who's struggling, who's wobbly, who's full of hope, who's not, all of these new things. But we're also seeing ourselves differently. And suddenly we start to, under this tension of week after week, month after month now of COVID, on top of everything else, on top of all of the regular business pressures and the disruption, it's causing people to reevaluate and say, is this it? Is this all there is?
Right.
Do I really want this? And I think this is the moment where, that reevaluation becomes critical in terms of what next for me. And so it might be people who are absolutely secure in their roles, but realize they don't actually want that role anymore.
Wow.
And the truth is, in this context, there is a mobility happening. There is a reshuffling of the deck, so to speak. And so there's an opportunity for them as well to find what's next and what's ahead.
Yeah, I love that you call that an opportunity. Sorry, Rob. Again, the whole notion of opportunity here is that it's been said that oftentimes until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain required to change, we tend to stay put. And right now, we talk about the great reveal, as you mentioned. One of the things that's being revealed is, for many, is this, the reality that the nagging question that they've had all along, is it time for a change? That the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
And for some, they're choosing it. For many right now, it's being forced on them. But again, the setback is the opportunity for your comeback, regardless of what initiated this, regardless of what got the ball rolling. There are ways for you to take this next season of your life and shape it more deliberately than perhaps you have in the past.
And this might be a case. Sorry, Rob, we're both like jumping in on top of you here.
It's exciting.
This might be a case where there is more opportunity for the right kind of change right now than ever before.
Right.
But it's also critical to do it right, because how we're looking at it and how we're responding to it is going to set our trajectory. So for if you're a leader who's just lost your role, you need to know you got all our sympathy and empathy. That is a difficult thing to go through. We're regularly in those conversations with leaders who are making these transitions. It is tough. It is tough. But the ones who succeed, the ones who find that place where they really belong, are because they've done very deliberate work in that space. So, there's a mourning that needs to happen. There's a grieving. There is a time to be upset and angry and frustrated and all of that. But there's also a moment to move beyond that, to start choosing our way through it. And it's how we're thinking about it, how we're choosing our way through it can literally set the trajectory for the rest of your life. So this is a critical moment for all of you, whether it's the change has arrived on you or whether you're choosing to change yourself. This is that moment.
And I do think that it's, so listen, hey, I love the fact that the two of you are jumping in and interrupting me, because it just demonstrates, again, your passion in this. It's what I appreciate about both of you. And I love working with the two of you because, again, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are going to be watching this video who may be in that place of feeling discouraged. Again, they're discouraged because their role has come to an end, or they might even be feeling guilty that in the midst of so many people who have lost jobs, they're sitting there thinking, I'm not satisfied with my role and I need to change that. And so there's all these mixed emotions. For you to be coming at this with the excitement and the passion that the two of you demonstrate, I think is amazing. And I think it hopefully will encourage and motivate people, inspire people to the notion of, to what you just said there, Trevor. Yes, mourn. We're not going to just pretend that there's no negative emotion here, but that's not where we're going. The change doesn't happen there. The desire for change happens there oftentimes, but now it's about moving into that next phase of saying you don't have to stay there. And whether it's feeling guilty or it's whether you're mourning at the loss of it. So, we've kind of identified these two groups. Again, I love how you summarize it at the end there, Trev. People where change is being forced on them, and then people who are choosing change. For those, Eric, let me ask you this, around those that are where change is being forced on them, whether you're the person who is doing the forcing, you are the leader who is having to maybe take somebody who was a wonderful part of your team, and you're having to release them from that role, or you're the person who is having the change put on them. What would you say to them? What would be some advice on things they can be thinking about?
Well, I mean, for the leaders that have to let an employee go, and again, we're talking about when you're having to let someone go who has been a contributor, a champion, an important part of your team. Let's face it, as leaders, there are folks that when you have to let them go, you might not feel as much disappointment over that, right? But when we're talking about someone who's been a contributor and a loyal member of your team, you want to ask yourself, how do I do this with as much honor, respect, compassion as possible? How do I potentially help this person? How do I help set them up for the next chapter of their lives? And if you're the leader being let go, again, it's the same series of questions for yourself. Is what questions do I need to ask myself? What framework do I need to use? What's important for me to identify here that is core to my core identity that will help shape this trajectory that Trevor was mentioning, so that I set it deliberately, and that I just don't find myself falling into the next thing. Because again, a lot of folks fall into a job only to regret, being there, because it doesn't satisfy them. It doesn't fulfill them. So for years, we've been helping many leaders with a simple program called ReFocus. It's a simple coaching approach where we lead them through a series of questions designed to help them really discover their core strengths, their core values, what energizes them, what they're most passionate about, helping them mine from their past, the experiences and the roles that they have played that have been most meaningful to them, and help give them a map, so to speak, a new framework to then evaluate everything that comes their way to be able to make better choices. Again, some leaders won't have the luxury of waiting until they find that perfect job. Not that there's a perfect job, but they may have to still find work in the short term. But they're doing that as a stepping stone because they know they're on the search, they're on the hunt for something that is going to bring great fulfillment, great satisfaction, where they feel like they're going to be able to have a greater impact. And again, if you're an employer, imagine being able to set an employee like that you've had to let go, but to give them the tools that they need to begin to take those steps. What a gift that is to someone who's been a real gift to your organization for perhaps a very long time.
Yeah, you're right. An opportunity to really invest in them as you're releasing them, so that they can see the success for that. Now, what about for that person who has been let go? They're to your point, they're going to, maybe have to find work. They have to, figure out on the short term emergency basis what to do. ReFocus for them. What would you say to somebody like that, and how ReFocus might be able to support them?
It's the same. It's a very similar process in that, again, as they're preparing to search, as they're preparing to take those next steps, they're going to have a guide, right? It's amazing often how long the longer we are in a certain context, the less we can see beyond that context. It's like almost these blinders develop. And I don't know how many times I've heard leaders say to me, I feel so stuck. I feel like I couldn't do anything else. And as a result, they're stuck. It's like they're driving in a fog. And so they're going nowhere fast. They're tense, they're nervous, they're anxious. And if you can clear the fog and bring that clarity to the process, all of a sudden now they're able to make much greater progress much faster.
Yeah, what a great way to see it is to be able to, you're right, to be able to get them to that place where even if there's a storm around them, there's enough clarity that they can kind of see down the road, and they're able to begin to make the right decisions, ask the right questions when they're going into job interviews and exploring different things. They just have that many more tools around them. Trev, we talked about that second type of individual, the second type of organization, where you've got a leader who is in a role and there's some uncertainty. And as I mentioned, they're probably feeling some guilt around, should I even be questioning things in the midst of this? And do I stay? Do I go? How would ReFocus be a great resource for individuals like that? What would some of the things you'd say to them?
Well, central to any kind of change, and Eric just touched on it, and I'm not sure I can say it any better, but it's the notion of clarity. We have to have and find the clarity that we're looking for. And one of the challenges is, when those voices have been in the back of our minds or in our peripheral vision for a long time, we've got used to not listening to them or not acknowledging them. And we'll say sometimes the universe is trying to talk to you, right? It'll whisper at first, it'll give you a little tap on the shoulder, it'll give you a nudge, and then it'll hit you with a truck.
Right now it's pushing you. Yeah.
Exactly. So COVID has arrived, it has created this incredible disruption in an event. And I think it's critical to look very carefully, to listen very carefully to those voices and go, what is that? The challenge is we're often so used to it, we have a hard time questioning it and understanding what it's really trying to say. And the risk is for someone to make a knee-jerk reaction to a sense in the background that they can't resist anymore, that they know they need to respond to, but the response is not deliberate enough and not focused enough. ReFocus actually helps you understand what's really speaking to you. And that's part of why you do go back. There are clues, right? There's a bit of a mystery to solve and unravel here, to go back and say, what are those indicators that have been pointing all the way along to that path you need to be on, and what's really trying to happen here and now, right? And to really understand what that is, because it's not always a wholesale shift to go off and do something new. Sometimes it's a very small shift that needs to happen. And if it's a small shift that needs to happen and you're taking a massive leap, there's a lot of risk to a lot of people, including yourself. So it's critical not to go alone, because we also need someone to challenge our assumptions, right? Those voices, we believe we understand what they mean, but to be able to have someone ask questions of us that we simply could not and cannot come up with on our own, right? Because we can only ask ourselves the questions we can come up with. And at a certain point, we keep asking the same questions and we keep getting the same answers. And then we go, well, I keep getting the same answer, so this must be the path. Well, actually, the issue is the question. We just keep asking the same question, so we keep getting the same answer. We need someone else to come in with a different perspective and a different set of questions where it is very deliberately organized and focused. And that's what ReFocus does, is to bring that together. So you've got back that focus that you had once and that you've lost, and it lets you bring it back into that path, that career, that life that you're looking for, the one that's most meaningful and aligned to your gifts and strengths.
Yeah, so true. I had a conversation with a client the other day, and I'd asked them a couple questions around the topic that we were working through. And as they were speaking, kind of responding to my questions, they paused all of a sudden and they said, now that I'm saying that out loud,
right,
I'm all of a sudden, I'm realizing something. And so you're absolutely right. It's about having someone who can come in and ask, different questions, but then give you the opportunity to actually talk through what you're trying to figure out. As one client, it said many years ago to us, helping him take out the head trash. And this is an opportunity to do that, regardless of where we are in the situation, where you fit into one of those descriptions that we've given today of the types of individuals, the opportunity to take the opportunity right now to refocus, to be able to really figure out what matters. And are you living the life that you want to live? Are you in the role that you are meant to be in? And to be able to explore all of that. The opportunity is here. We would love to be able to certainly support and to work with you in that, to get that refocus there for you. Certainly encourage you, if you've got some questions you want to meet and have a conversation with one of our coaches, we would be happy to do that. You can reach out to us. You can go to our website at rhapsodystrategies.com, or you can reach out directly to me, rob@rhapsodystrategies.com, and I could certainly point you to one of our coaches. We're happy to set up a free 20-minute call just to walk you through some of that, to provide some information. The important thing is, as you in this season, take some time to breathe and to recognize, even if you got the infectious attitude of my two great friends here, that there is hope, that there is a path forward, that there is a tomorrow. It's about navigating and finding out what that is. So thanks again for taking some time to dive in on this video, and we encourage you to reach out, and certainly let's start our conversation.